Right, so welcome to this session, the NEBOSH National General Certificate. And today we will be focusing on the project, the NG2 project for the NEBOSH National General Certificate, right? So it's an hour and a half we have, and this presentation or this video will cover part 1 and part 2 of the project. As I was saying just before we hit the record button there, this video may make it to YouTube. So, if it gets to YouTube, we would be able to share it with you and you'd have an update video other than just the Google Classroom format anyway. Nonetheless, if it just came in there, we were saying that this is already on YouTube, just is not your class, right? I've done this already with another class and the video is on YouTube. You can get it at Shadrach Ayosh. And if you do and you have not subscribed as yet, please subscribe. We do, that's more for YouTube and for us anyway. Maybe we can probably reach about 1,000 subscription by next year. I wouldn't say this year, right? We do have some really big classes coming up, some classes of 20 and 20 here in Trinidad anyway. So maybe it's not that impossible, but 20 and 20 wouldn't give you 100, right? It'll give you just about, 40 anyway. So just as we get into the project, let me just check. I think we're now all in, right? So thanks for joining. And again, like I said, I know it's not, we all know the trial of working and studying, right? The good news though is just an hour and a half, which is sort of long for some people. But you do have your video that you can look back to. And, you are in the comfort of your home for now. Given if the courses still run on, online applications such as Zoom anyway, right? So at the end of the hour and a half, I guess you don't have to travel or, spend that money in, clothes and getting ready and stuff, right? You are home and I am home at the same time, right? So feel free. Now, one of the things that some students do is that they don't ask any questions while we teach. And then, it's just 10 of us, so definitely feel free to ask any questions that you may have. You all know once I see it, I stop. I do like to stop a bit because it gives me a chance to take a rest. And at the same time, it gives you a chance to say what you have to say as well. Right, just confirm for me. You could confirm verbally or in the chat if you all can see the background here, which is guidance for learners. Can you all see that? You could nod. I do have Julius, I have Joshua on my screen. I just have to make sure because I don't want to start teaching. Okay, great. Thanks for the confirmation, right? Yeah, it's, well, every day for me is like that, but tomorrow is actually one of our exams as well. So that's some students calling there. Anyway, I said, if you came in a bit late, I'll try to give you 4 simple steps before we go into the reading, right? So the first thing here is the project. Don't you can see this too well. Maybe I could open my whiteboard then, right? Let me just open my whiteboard so that everybody can see what I was trying to show there. But no, I'm not really trying to show anything. The thing is, I just wanted to tell you, but when you see, sometimes it sticks better then, right? So when you see something, it sticks better, right? So the project, if you were here last week, Tuesday, of course, could be done from your home. You are basically doing this project on a task or a job that you would have done before. So some of it could be done from memory. Now you can't do it in a real life situation, but you don't have to. You don't have to say that you don't have to go back then to a construction company. You can do it from your memory, right? So to signify that, I'm just going to draw a person with a memory cloud to the top of them, right? So you can do this from memory and you can make some of it up. And of course, definitely some of it could be from real life. And even if you do make up something from memory, it's often going to be based on something in real life as well. You can change the name. I can't write everything. And as I said, today writing for you is very important. I can just put the 4 big points here because I want to start because it's 6:05 already, right? So you can change the name of the company. You can call it Julius and Sons. You can call it, BB Company Limited. It really doesn't matter. The names are not important. What is important, we'll talk about that when we get into it. So for now, you can do this from home. This could be real and from memory, real or from your memory. when I say from your memory, like I worked, you know, like I would have worked before, you all would have worked somewhere else before. You don't have to really be in a welding shop to know the hazards. You can do it from your memory. You can remember that there could have been cables running across the floor. There could have been, you know, like flammable hazards, or the workers were not properly trained. So you don't have to be in it then physically to do the project. You can do it from memory, especially when it's still, you know, almost the pandemic. You know, I mean, it still is that anyway. The coronavirus is still there, and NEBOSH is still operating the exam with that safety measure in mind, right? The other thing here is that there is a sample. Remember, I'm just giving you 4 big ones there, and I'm just trying to get into it. There's a sample and there's a guidance. Now, the key to it is really using these documents, right? The key to it is using these documents. And when you do not know what to do, right? When a student normally says they don't know what to do, it's really because they are not following the guidance or they're not following the sample, right? So you can think of this as the blueprint or the map, right? You want to get it wrong, I guess. Well, I mean, I guess Guyana is pretty big, right? But let's say you would have visited another country, then Canada, the States, the UK, you want to get it wrong, right? Now you have a map, but you're not using the map, right? So these things come like the map, right? And it is really point for point. That's the only way to describe it. The guidance tells you exactly, right? Again, everything I cannot write down, I'm just trying to emphasize it. The guidance tells you exactly what you need to do. The minute you run off that guidance or you come away from the guidance, then you come away from the road directions, then the analogy of not following proper directions then, right? So in that sense, you probably will get lost. But the key to it is you have a guidance and you have a sample, right? The third thing, let me see what I can say. The third thing here is that even though there is a sample, you are to use your own words, right? You are not to take, right, any lines. You are not to take any hazard from the sample and try to pass it off as your own, right? So NEBOSH has a very, not too sure what happened to the word there, right? So NEBOSH has a very active plagiarism committee. You know how some people say they have a plagiarism software? Well, they have the plagiarism software, but they also have a plagiarism committee. Well, a plagiarism, somebody in charge of it, right? Dr. Tosney. And, you know, you cannot really pass off any of the sample words as your words and get away. You will get catch. And if you get catch, you will be, you know, sorted out as plagiarism. Then I was going to say charge, but you know, there is no fee for plagiarism, right? It's just that you'll be held accountable for plagiarism, at which time your paper would be investigated. And if it does turn out to be plagiarized, which is using the sample as your own words, the outcome could be that you have to redo the project. And there is actually a penalty for plagiarism, which is you could, well, I mean, if this is not a penalty enough, right? I mean, this is a penalty in itself, but I would say a more serious penalty than other than redo is that you'll be banned from NEBOSH, right? You get a ban from NEBOSH for a certain period of time. And let me just say this, in the 2 years of doing NEBOSH in Guyana, 1 student has already been banned, right? So it was a student, that's a whole story for a whole different day. A student who submitted a draft. I mentioned to him more than once, about 3 times, that he was taking things from this sample. Of course, we could only talk, we could only advise. You know, I would have told him more than once, I would have highlighted it. It was obvious that he was copying bulk from the sample and passing it off as his own. But not even bulk, a couple of words can do that as well, right? And it resulted in him being banned from the NEBOSH exam for about 2 years. There's a more serious penalty, which is sometimes you can be banned for life, right? And so maybe to sort of end the 4 simple points here, is that once you follow this, if you follow this basic introduction, it wouldn't go wrong. Project can be done at home, must use the guidance, must use the sample, use your own words. I'm thinking what else could be a fourth simple one for you? Well, a fourth simple one maybe is that we do look at drafts. Now the draft is just my opinion, as I am not the examiner, right? So I do look at draft, or should I say drafts, and all I will do, we do not give a mark. We would normally just inform you that you are following the guidance, or you need to go back and check, like you missed something on the guidance in point number 1 or whatever have you, right? So we do give you a draft, look at it. It's not a draft mark. I don't do draft marking. In fact, no one does, except in the UK examiners, but we would be able just to point you in the right direction. Look, you missed out the date, or you missed out the time, or you missed out a hazard or something, right? So we do that. And the project is normally due, I think I mentioned this last week, Tuesday. It's due, I think, the Wednesday before your exam, right? So you could check that out. I think it's around the 25th of November. Now you don't have to wait for the 25th of November, because what we normally do, or what we expect then, is that as soon as we are finished teaching, like for example, this week here, so I guess it's the 30th of November from what I'm seeing here. The last Wednesday of November is the 30th of November. Well, I think I get to Wednesday, right? The last Wednesday is the 30th of November there. So that's when it's due. But what we do, like how today I'm teaching part 1 and part 2, I would expect you all to get part 1 and part 2 done in about maybe 2 weeks time. And you submit that by next week. Monday will be on part 3 and part 4. So then you submit that, and then you could fix it up, put it all back together on the NEBOSH template, and we are good to go. Now, there's a lot more fine tuning to it, but we have to start. So let's make a start, right? Could you see if you have any questions? Or I said that I've just given you a 4-point introduction and sort of start on it. I think this is enough. There's a lot of nitty-gritties to the end of it. When I say to the end of it, but like submission, but I think this is enough for us to make a start so that you get the point 1 and point 2, not point 1 and point 2, but part 1 and part 2 done anyway, right? Tell me if you're okay with this, see if you have any questions. All right, okay, so let's make a start, right? So I'm going back to the colorful chart we were looking at then, right? Where I started to draw on before, right? So this is the turn off my camera. It does seem to be working well. Normally if it sticks, you would see like the words don't match up so there was this, and if you read this guidance, right? Things you need to know on it. The front of it is like this. I would have emailed you all this last week, the 18th, right? I took a note of it and marked it on the register when I email you all, right? So the 18th, take a look back for the email this. That's when you run into some problems little on the project. If you can see here, there are about 4 focus. Next week could be part 3 and do everything that you need to put and use the guidance, right? I have 6 things that they want you to put. You must put the site location as the general location. I mean, you could be for putting a full address, right? And, right, Georgetown, South America. There's no rule saying that you cannot do that. Right? Still leave it as Leicestershire because they, of course. But like I said, if you are from, a part of Guyana and you think the UK examiner doesn't know where that is, like Berbice, put Berbice. So put how many workers are employed and put it in male and female, but you don't need to do that. For example, if you have 25 males, you don't need to do that. But the thing is, this is your project. You really want to do a good one to pass. So, you could do more than what you're seeing here then, right? If they say how many workers, you shouldn't just put 100. You shouldn't just put, 15 males, 2 female staff. Often do it better than that. Number 4, you want to put information on the products manufactured and or taken and the shift patterns work. Now, doing this project, like I said, you have to follow the map. You have to follow the document then, right? So some people read this and they put one thing here. Now, if you read this, there's a lot of things they're asking you here for. A general description of the organization. They are normally separated by a comma, right? The general description must include information on what your company is doing. What are they doing? Are they manufacturing? Are they service? Are they, customer related? What is the company doing? The types of activities undertaken is normally to be broken down in a very detailed overview. you would see it on the sample. As I mentioned, they do have a sample as well. And the shift patterns worked, right? Everything you see here, you have to put. Everything you see here, you have to do that. If you leave out any, you could fail the project. For example, I had a student that left out the shift patterns worked, right? She said that her company did not have any shift patterns, right? But the idea is from time to time, people do work shifts, right? Maybe on a Saturday. So you have to say that. You have to say that, you know, on occasions, maybe if there is a special job, workers will come out on a Saturday to work 8 to 12 p.m., right? So she did actually fail for not putting the shift patterns. Again, what we would have done in the draft is tell her to put it in, but it's up to you. Remember, we don't do your project for you. We look at it, we say, look, you have not put in the shift or you have not given a general description. That's all I do really. And, you know, it's up to you to put it in, right? Number 5, you have to describe the area to be included in the risk assessment. So of all the areas you describe, you have to zone down then to the area to be included in the risk assessment. Now, most people zone down to 3 areas. You can take a note of that. You need to zone down in about 3 areas of your company. And an example of that could be like an office, right? It could be, well, you have to choose whatever is suited to your company, right? So if there is a stock room, please write it down and save me the writing here because I don't need to write and talk at the same time, right? I said writing paper is very important today. So you could talk about a stock room, a warehouse, right? But you have to come down to about 3 areas, even though the company may start off as a big organization or even a small one, but you want to kind of zone down to like 3 areas. Most persons may have a stock room, a warehouse. If you're out in the construction field, it may be, you know, like the construction site. On the construction site, you may have an office, right? So you need to zone down. In this piece here, number 5, you'll have to say the risk assessment will be conducted, you know, in the construction area, wherever you are using the offshore platform, the office, right? And maybe the bunker or something, right? Whatever you all have. But most people bring down this piece here to about 3 areas. The reason is that you need to get about 10 hazards on those, about 12 hazards, 10 to 12 hazards. So if you choose 3 areas, then the hazards could come from, the hazards tend to be different then, like the hazards in the office would be different to the hazard in the warehouse, you understand? So you come down to about 3 areas to get a wide range of hazards, not too wide, because you just need about 10 to 12 different hazards, right? The last one here, we need any other relevant information. I need to clean this slide to show that last piece. Any other relevant information. Well, they didn't just leave it like that. A lot of people don't read it, right? A lot of any other relevant information, they actually give an example of what they want. They said, example, who has the day-to-day responsibility for health and safety in the organization? So they really wanted to say who has day-to-day responsibility for health and safety in the organization, right? So just take a mental look at that. I don't expect you to remember all 6 now. But what we expect is that when you go to write yours, you follow this sample name of the organization. You must have the location. That includes the products manufactured, the shift pattern. What you're going to use that one is, so there is a sample, bring it up here. And I'll look at the 2 comments in the chat boxes there, right? So as I said, in the brief introduction, you know, you have to use these documents, right? However, in using them, you cannot plagiarize them. You want to use these words, try to do, right? Let's take a look at your chat questions, first of all. Right, first one here. Let me just see if that was the first one, right? Right, the first one seems to be from BB, right? What is the difference between the service provided and types of activities undertaken? Well, I think hopefully you're right in. So the service provided is sort of like the general function of the company, right? So you should write that down. The service provided is the function of your company. So like if you know that you are in the servicing, you know, like the oil and gas sector, providing contractor service for the oil and gas sector, or accounting services for the oil and gas sector. So services provided is like the function of the company, and types of activities is really the work that is being done. And you would need to describe the work in in almost like step by step, but separated by commas. Like I said, the sample is here. So you'll see an example of one now anyway, right? So the services provided is like the function. The type of activities is more for the nitty-gritty work. So for example, type of activities, if I was welding pipes, the types of activities would include like carrying pipes. Yeah, if it's like the exact steps then, like carrying pipes from the pipe rack to the welding shop, comma. Issuing maybe a permit to work, comma. So using commas to separate the activities undertaken, right? The welder actively welding the pipe, comma, right? Removing the finished product back to the pipe rack, right? So the types of activities is really the nitty-gritty of the work, right? Let me give you another one. If somebody was, again, let's say somebody is working in a factory, so the services provided would be manufacturing of beer, right? Let's say the service sector, manufacturing of beer from the raw material of grain and barley. And then the activities would actually include, if you were zoning down then at a particular area, remember we said that, right? That you have to zone down to an area. So if you were zoning down to the work area where the where the grain is being mixed in the water and the barley and stuff, that's what you have to say. The activities include workers manually or even mechanically mixing grain or actually switching on the grain machine, right? The mixer then or the fermenter. So the nitty-gritty becomes the activities separated by a comma, right? Please explain types of, okay, so I just did that, right? Understood. Okay, anybody else? Well, like I said, there's a sample, right? So they didn't leave you in the dark. Look, they have a sample here. So let's take a look at it. I don't know if I can mention the 6 things, right? So we have the name of the organization, general description 4, 5, 6. So they said there's no way for getting it wrong what you're supposed to do, of which there is no excuse for that. So the name of the organization, Eastern Gardens, you know, wherever you just, I mean, it doesn't even have to be before, it doesn't even have to be in Guyana, right? Number of work, right? This is something I wanted to say in the introduction, but I only give you 4. But doing this, share. And the other piece I'm going to show you, a description of the organization. Remember what we supposed to say, service provided or products manufactured, we supposed to see inside, right? So NGG vehicle repair shops and payments on commercial vehicles and body repairs on vehicles, accidents for insurance companies. So there you have your one-time garage with office, vehicle. They even said the function was sons who may have been involved in maintenance are also carried out from members. That's like the function there, right? So let's move on to apart from the stores to the workshops. So you see how nitty-gritty it is. Related to service and maintenance. Body repairs, including the use of paints that are solvent-based. The garage PM on weekdays, 7 hours per day. So they are staggered start and finish times in place. Now, let me see areas, right? This piece says activities. The office area having it. It doesn't mean you have to do that. I still advise do 3 areas. And if you do this, you know, other relevant document directly to the general manager has direct responsibility for health. They tell you what they want and then they give you a sample. The comments I'll make here before I ask if you have any comments is the mistake already, because remember I have a set already. I think I saw 2 already, right? 2 from Saturday. But I don't think they were Guyanese, right? To be honest. I mean, I know the folks from Guyana, right? I don't think the 2 I saw was, they put XYZ is a medium root. I told them, no, that's plagiarism. That's plagiarism, right? You just have to make up one like this, but not this. If you take the word some person had, the risk assessment because a separate risk assessment. I said, no, because that sounds like the sample, right? That sounds like the sample. I didn't say the risk assessment will cover, you know, I guess, construction yard 1, the office area. The office area has a separate risk assessment. Once they see that level of commonality, that it's so similar to the sample, you will be, what is the word I'm looking for? You would be, it's not charged, right? But you would be held then for plagiarism. All you have to do is make up your own. You just have the safety manager who reports to the CEO, has direct responsibility for health and safety, right? I can say the risk assessment, look, I just did this one for you. I said the risk assessment would cover Shadrach Safety Institute office. The parking in the office has a separate risk assessment, right? Yeah, you look at it, you look at it in principle, then it's just like the exam. It's open book, but you're not copying everything. If you see the main principles, right? I'll just point them out for you again. The main principle inside here was that we have function, I put in number 1. function, the function of the organization. Next thing, the activities undertaken, right? Next thing, we had the, I think we had the shift patterns work. I probably missed one, right? The shift patterns work, right? And I know I missed one, which was the areas to be included in the risk assessment, but that's down here. But at least they kind of give a hint up here anyway, right? So you can just write your own and make sure you cover, like, you know, make sure you cover activities, make sure you cover shift, make sure you cover function, but they don't have to really song. You don't have to, you know, you don't have to song like this. And they are investigating projects that sound like their sample, right? Nothing could be easier than this, because look, I could just make this up for you here. No, right? Folks, ask any questions. We have 2 more pieces to go. And they are just like this, right? The key is that you have a sample. You sort of go. Anyone, any questions? So the idea is that look at that and just do 1 words from it, right? You know, like I said, they are very serious with the plagiarism thing anyway. All right, the next will be methodology. I know you don't see that, but then the document then, right? It's the methodology here for you. Document. Let me just go back and show you. Just give me a minute. I know you could probably see it already. Just making sure that we have clicked the guidance, right? So on the blueprint, we just came out of this one. Remember these 6 steps here, right? They have the next, so as you go down, carry out, this is what they reproduce back on the sample. So whether or not you see it here, or you see it on the sample, it's actually on the sample, right? As I said, I didn't need to come back here to show you the guidance, but I show you because I needed to follow the guidance, and don't follow me, right? Don't follow me, follow the guidance, because half of the things put the source of information, what is already being done with the sample, you'll see how it's done step by step, right? Let me just make sure you're seeing that again. So this is it here. This is the methodology. What I just read has been reproduced here. So in the methodology, you want to include the source of information consulted. So what you're required to do is, my guidance is for me, and I told you the sample is not perfect, right? The sample is a work in progress, right? You don't need one. You can say it twice already now, right? You consult, you can have references to our organization, what your company is doing. So if you're in the fabrication industry, you want to get a guidance from the oil and gas sector, whatever work is being done in the area then, like if it was welding, then you get a couple of guidances on welding. 2 or 3 is very good, right? The examiners have commented that they are happy to see students put in 2 to 3 guidances and ACOPs. In all, you can put maybe 2 guidance and 1 ACOP, right? When you put the site, and you have to put the website that you get it from. 3 is very good. 2 is good. 3 is very good. 1 is just what you're supposed to do, right? So please remember how talking about, like how I said, well then, there's a risk of fire. Maybe you can get office and the work is more ergonomic and manual handling. Maybe you can get an area is no on dust per se then, right? So you put, I started looking up references to good, the HSC website has motor vehicle repair and give the guidance and they give you about 3, right? 2 is good. I told you 3 is very good because we get back the comments, right? That the examiners are saying it's good to see. So how you identify from here, you can say something like a workshop and talk to the people who are doing the job. This gave me information that was not obvious from just as did not know that there were dust masks available or the reasons why they should be worn. Identify actions. I also reoccurred requested the general principle for that controls. It would information workshop. If you probably say accident trend for like additional controls to be put right. Tell me now what you think then, and don't wait for the week to ask what you think, right? Look at it now and see if you understand it. Right, some short lines, like I said, it don't have to be that short, but ideally what you're seeing then is like you cover this source of information first, and then you kind of cover like what you did to get the hazard, right? So like you could have said you did inspections or you did a tour, you look at company records. So it's very simple, right? Because you have a sample, you just write one like it, but don't take any words from it. So you're taking the principle of it. The principle of it is that you started by saying where you got the research information from. Then like what you did, you took a tour, you look at company records, and each one of you would have your way of doing that. Right? So like for me, if I remember, I can say I would have looked at past audits then, right? Past accidents, kind of like what they say here, but I say it back in my own words, and I could look at the past accident reports or investigation to try to figure out what's going on. And like, you know, like the hazards in the company, you see that almost here as well, right? And so with the example though, Yes, okay. BB asks, is it okay to go over the word limit? The answer is yes, right? Yes, you can go over the word limit. I have not seen a penalty as yet. Most persons don't really follow the word limit, to be honest, because they're not penalizing you for the word limit. So don't worry with it too much. If you do massively over amount, we probably will tell you about it. I think you can go over by about, it depends on the word limit for this section, right? Let me just refresh here. Like I said, I mean, to be honest, I know they have not been checking. I can say that because no one has been, for now, NEBOSH has not been checking this word limit. People fail for it, put how they went about, and by the way, this year, but we could talk about last year, right? And the year, one of the reasons is because you remember to said, once you are receptive enough and you take my suggestion, I believe you would be on good standing. I am not the marker, so it's not a guaranteed pass. But as I said last year, I do remember, a student who had a lot of one and even for the table, and we told him about it. I told him about it, and he did not fix it, and multiple times, and he submitted as is, and he was caught in plagiarism, right? So the answer to the question again is, if there is a penalty, it's not been exercised as yet. I do believe if you stick to some ways like this, then like 3 lines there, 3 lines here, 3 lines here, 4 lines here, that you would still stay within the word limit, right? But don't massively overdo it then. I think maybe, maybe 20 to 50 words extra is okay. But from what I know, no one has failed for crossing the word limit. And that's how I leave it there because, I don't know anyone that failed because of the word limit, right? Just reading somebody's thing, right? Do you have to use AHSG for the research? Or can you make reference to your company policy? Okay, I'll answer that in a bit. Let me just see the other bit. Or in other words, can I research using resource? Okay, you could probably use both, right? Now, because guidances was a part of the course, remember you all had an assignment on that. They want to see it. Remember guidances on ECOPS, right? So you can say yes. Like for looking at your own company documents, you could use that down here. Like how you got the hazards, like looking at the company's accident from work and take it as the nature is really part of your course. And you would have heard me say the examiners are commenting that they like to see it, especially when you put up here for Wikipedia. Do not use Wikipedia. Do not use Wikipedia. Use it. Do not put, I am sure you all know, or if you don't know, speaking of no, there's another version of this course called the ILO version. Do you know that that course is no longer accredited by the accrediting body for NEBOSH, which is IOSH, right? And so do not put any ILO standards there. If I've shown you all that, I can show you that live now as we are talking. Next thing you see, you all don't believe me, but you all must believe me by now. I've never really been anyway to any of my students, worse yet, dishonest, right? But the ILO version of the NEBOSH certificate, which the other school is offering there in Guyana, do you know that's no longer accredited? I'm trying to find it. I probably will find it and send it to the group, right? If you bear with me a minute, I'll find it, but no killing time too. I'm sure you all believe me, right? Without me showing you it, right? That ILO version was never the full NEBOSH. We told students about that a lot. I had a lot of meeting with folks in Guyana. There were 2 other students who were supposed to be in this class. The ILO version, right, is not the same as this. And September of this year here, IOSH came out with a statement saying that they no longer accrediting the ILO version, the International Organization Certificate, then also known as the International Certificate, is no longer accredited. So look at here. Let me just forward it to the group. Oh, don't tell me I just lost it. I'm just gonna forward it to the group. If I can find the group. Right? If you have any questions, please just ask. So anyway, the point of all of this was not really accreditation. And the point of this was, I hope this is your group. I don't feel it is though. No, I don't feel that is your group. Probably past your group. Another group. Oh, sorry, September guy, right? I just sent you something there. Take a read of that when you get some time. But don't put any ILO standards here. The ILO standards are not law. A standard could never be a law, right? And I had a Guyana student that did that. He went on to pass. Some of you all may know him. He repeated Ashton Simon. The first time he did it, he put a lot of ILO stuff there. Now, at the time, IOSH didn't put out a statement like this. So all people had was my words. And, not a lot of people was believing me, right? When I told them about accreditation and stuff. I don't know if you have a time to read it and see that NEBOSH is the international certificate is no longer accredited by IOSH. What that means is that IOSH is the accrediting body for safety. It's like saying the biggest accreditation body, not accrediting your course. So what is the worth of your course then? Well, it still is a NEBOSH, and apparently Guyana is still accepting it, but it's not accredited by the biggest health and safety body in the world, which is the strength of NEBOSH. The strength of NEBOSH is really accreditation. So if you have the biggest health and safety body not accrediting the ILO certificate, folks, don't put any ILO thing there I was telling you all, right? So anyway, that's don't know how I end up talking about that, but that's really just put the HSG, the ones that I taught you, the ones that you did for me in the assignment. Remember, you did an assignment for me. You got 3 hazards, you got 3 guidances, you got 3 ACOPs. Just do that. Look, you're seeing it here. And look, you're seeing something I sent you from IOSH there too, right? In terms of accreditation. Anyway, I'm going on to the table now. So once the methodology is finished, that's actually the end of part 1. In part 2, just on 1, and you have to do this like about 12 times then, right? You have to do this about 12 times. So let's take a start to the top. Here, what I feel I'll just show you, I would show you the guidance and I'll come back to this because at the top here, you put the organizer using the person National General Garage Limited. Do not make this a problem. Any date will work. Next week will work. The other week will work. 25th of November will work. 1st of December will work. Any date before your exam will work. The risk assessment, the scope is actually the same 3 areas or 2 areas that you said you were going to use. I am telling you to use 3 because when you use 3 areas, you get more hazards. You get a wider range of hazards then as opposed to just 2 areas. So the scope is the areas that you had said that you were going to use. The scope will be the, what I was saying, I think what I was saying was the example I was using was what? Was a welding shop. So the scope will be like the welding bay, the pipe rack, the office, right? Or the service bay, wherever you want to use. The scope is the areas. The scope referred to the 3 areas that you said you were going to use in part 1. Let me show you just in case you didn't see it. Right now, the going up and down is what is going to take me some time. For part 1 here, watch it here. The risk assessment will cover not the office, but I want you to use 3. The more areas you use, the wider hazard and the spray boot activities for, right? The garage, same thing. It's not here for them, for the sample, because they say they were not going to use it, right? All right, now here's one of the main things with the project. If you didn't write, I mean, I'll show you writing. I'll show you writing, because everything we say there is very important, right? So here what? One of the main things for the project that can cause it to fail, right, is that the 10 or 12 hazards, here what, I'm going to write it out for you first, right? And then I'll show you the 10 or 12 hazards that you're going to get. You don't need to get more than 12, right? 12 is a good number. So you could aim to stop anywhere between 10 and 12, which is 11. Well, 10, 11, or 12, right? You can stop anywhere there. You can't stop at 9 because you have to get 10 hazards to pass, right? You have to get a minimum of 10. You can go up to 13 if you want. There's no need to go to 15. By the way, this was not the main thing, right? I was just talking there. And I was just saying you need to get about 10, or 12 hazards. You should number these. These are some nitty-gritty things. These are some not too important things, right? But it's still nitty-gritty now. Like you should number this here. As I told you, the sample is not perfect. Yes, it could. Okay, somebody's asking, Imani is asking, could it be any hazards within the company? The answer to that is actually no. Right? Pay very close attention now, right? So this is the piece I wanted to tell you before I wrote this here. So the 10 or 12 hazards, right? It is really not the hazards or not all the hazards in your company, right? The hazards are really coming from a NEBOSH pool. Imani, they give you a pool of hazards to choose from. So you cannot choose your own hazard. You have to choose the hazards from the NEBOSH pool of hazards, meaning all of you here would probably end up with some of the same hazard groupings then. They call them hazard categories, right? So to answer Imani's question, and this is very important, if you put a hazard then that is not in the pool, you would fail. But that would only happen if you don't show me a draft, because when you show me the draft, that's something that I fix. I will tell you then, look, okay, look, you have, let me make up one, right? I would say, look, you have crushing injuries, but crushing is not in the pool, right? So therefore you should change crushing. So the big question is, where is this pool? Where do I find this pool of hazards from? And the only answer is, of course, the blueprint, right? The map, the guidance. So let's go to that quickly. I want to show you the list of hazards that you have to choose from. I'd have to clean this, right? You don't have to clean it. Oh yes, it's a pool of complete a risk assessment of your hazards. At least means more than 10. Different hazard cuts. Each one should be different. I'm going to underline it. I'm going to underline it 3 times, right? For the avoidance of doubt, the hazard categories that you are going to use for this assessment are the topic headings in element 5 to 11 in the second textbook. And if you don't want to open your second textbook, look, they give you a table here with the hazards in it. So the hazard categories you're using can only be these. Noise. Could you use vibration? Yes. Could you use radiation? Yes. Could you use, each of this is a different one. Violence at work? Yes. Work-related upper limb disorders? Yes. Manual handling? Yes. Could you use that? Load handling equipment? Yes. Hazardous substance? Yes. You get the idea. But once it's not in this list, you cannot use it. So you have to check the list first, like fire. This is on pick up page 7. You need to print page 7 and have it. By the way, they wanted word for, I guess it had to be Trinidad because, like I said, Guyana didn't have anybody that failed. This year, it had someone that put the hazard here, work equipment, and NEBOSH failed them. Because the hazard is not work equipment, it's work equipment and machinery. You see how strict they are? I'll say that again. I sure you believe me, right? Somebody had work equipment and they failed because of that. Because the proper name is work equipment and machinery. This is another one here. Some people put hazardous substance and they don't say if it's chemical or biological. You have to say if it's chemical or if it's biological. The rest of them fairly easy. I don't think anybody does get, oh, there's some people who confuse manual handling with work-related upper limb disorders, which is totally different, right? If you doubt it, check your second textbook. It's 2 different things. Manual handling is not the same as work-related upper limb disorders. It's totally different, right? But other than that, you know, what I'm saying, if we go back to let's go back to the example, right? What I'm saying is that in doing the hazards then, how I do it, right? Or how I check it. When I say I do it, like how I check it for you, but also how I do it, I guess. Just tell me if you've seen back the sample there, the yellow and white background. Just tell me if you've seen that back. The hazard table, are you all seen that on your view? Yeah, I have Julius on screen, so you could just nod if Julius seen it. You seen it there, Julius? The yellow, is this yellow or orange? Kind of yellowish. Okay, some of you all seen it, right? Okay. Yes, okay, good. You all seen it. Thanks. Okay, right. So what I do, right? I'm trying to get my eraser here. Like what I would do, I would start off with the category. Like I start off with hazardous substance. In other words, then, let me, okay, like I'm trying to open back a whiteboard, right? So like if I was doing this, right, what I will do, I normally start off with the category. So like for that table, I start off with fire. I will make sure that fire is in the pool then that they want us to use. So I start off with fire. See if you see like that's what they were doing too. I'm going back and share the one that we were looking at, right? Watch it there. They kind of, you have to underline it, right? Look a bit. This is failed, didn't fail. Yeah, man, and machine pool. Like if you watch, right? Like those of us in safety, it's not at the pool and like crushing is not there. Entanglement is not there. Projectiles is not there. So if it's not there, you cannot use it. Very important. Now, again, if you give me a draft, I'll because so you can see it, right? I'm going back to the and forth, right? But I want to make sure that you absolutely understand what I'm saying is that what I will do, I will start off right? I will start off by thinking, remember I said you could do this project at home, right? So I'm thinking, if in my company, it could have a fire. And if it could have, well, fine, that's one of my hazards. I will start with fire. You understand what I just did there? Like a next one, I would think in my company, can I have manual handling? And if it could have manual handling, and of course, in all your companies, it could, because these hazards are synonymous then to all organizations, right? Could I have electrical hazards? Yes. So that's what I'm saying. All of you would probably end up with the same categories. However, it will get a bit different once you finish choosing out your categories from the pool, right? So you're not choosing what you want to choose. It's kind of easier than that. They kind of tell you what they want you to use. And because of that, you could use this or you could do this more and more than from home or from the book then, because you have the categories to choose. In other words, you don't have to go out there to see slip, trips, and fall. You just have to ask yourself, in my company, can someone slip and trip? And if they could, well, a fourth hazard is slip and trip. See how easy? It's easier than you think. It's easier than you think. It's actually too easy, to be honest. Because before the pandemic, this was actually 30 hazards. Now it's just 10. And before the pandemic too, we would have to carry to school in December. In fact, I was supposed to be there December 2020. And it was actually killing people. I actually lost one of my brothers. My younger brother died that same December. I think again, it's kind of easy from here. Let me kind of walk you through it, right? So once you choose the category, you have to put your example. Could I write this here? This is your example now of that category. So once you choose, so like all of you here would probably choose hazardous substance, but the example of it in your company will be different. So once you choose the category, you have to give your example of it in the workplace. Remember, this is a garage and spray boot activity. So they say dust, high concentration of processed dust is in the air. Think you get that, folks? Let me just give you an office one. If you're working in the office and you put hazardous substance, your example may be detergents and cleaners, cleaning agents like chlorine or chlorine-based compounds are left outside of the cleaner's cupboard. Everybody will have, even though your category is the same. In other words, even if we all say fire, your example of fire at your company will be different to the other student then. Right? Ramona's zone is going to be different to Imani's zone, which is going to be different to Shaka's zone. Everybody's going to have a different example, but the category will still be the same, which is fire. Shaka example of fire will not be the same as what BB will put as fire because the work is different. You all understanding that? So from there, it gets different. Other than the categories being, you know, like you all are all choosing from the same pool, electricity, but you know, like somebody working in the construction field, their example of electricity is going to be different for someone working in an office, right? So could you finish this up? This is supposed to be your example is what will come here. If you want to take another look at one, let's have another look at one before I go on. Just to get this thing to move. Let's see equipment and machinery. That's not right. Here we have IT-related equipment and the version for a bit. What they should have said is that it was not good. They're supposed to say what's hazardous could lead to things like in the fall. Right? 3 times a sample is not sample, right? I'm going across meaning going horizontally, right? And how. Now there's a little difference here. Let me just grab my marker again. Right? The who might be harm. You have to kind of say who the workers are. They like to see when you say technicians, you know, supervisor. This all workers, examiners don't like that too much. You have to say who could be harmed. Technicians, supervisors, health and safety, right? Fire watch. Those are the persons that could be harmed. And you have to say how they could be harmed. Now the who and the how is different. I'll say that again. You see a full stop there? The who and the how is different. So the how is, I guess if we're talking about dust, the how is, but I can read this way. They say high concentration of processed dust are always present from the routine and frequent activities being carried out. Since there is no dust extraction, so that's the how. There is no dust extraction. People are breathing in the hazardous dust, so that's the how. I wonder if you understand this. I'm looking at my time. Here, what? I'll do another one in a bit, right? For now, it's who and how, and it's two different things, right? What are you already doing? Now, the key to this is that it must be written in past tense. I hope you all are writing it up, right? The key to this, it must be in past tense. What are you already doing? Well, past or present tense. It could be present tense as well, right? And when you write it, you have to write it in a way that it is probably not going to be good enough. I'll tell you what I mean just now, right? Past or present tense, like this here is not good enough. How do you put dilute ventilation? That's not good enough, right? Like you have to say then what is already being done. You have to say like, okay, like this point have it, this point have dust mask available, but it's not mandatory that they are worn. In other words, when you write this one, you have to write it in a way that it will make it seem as if the current controls are not good enough. I'll say that again. When you write this one, you have to write it to say that the current controls are not good enough. You see, if the current controls are not good enough, that's why we'll go on to this column here, which is further controls. It's only if these are not good enough, and there could be some that are good enough, but the majority of them will have to be not good enough. Let me use a different example. This one could be going over your head a bit, right? Let me just use, or do I continue with this one? Right? I was just saying, if I had here, let's say I had your slips and trips. If I had these slips and trips, I would not write it. It would take me 2 times. I'm just saying, if I had slips and trips there, the hazard could be, you know, like a worker will be entangled in a cord, thereby falling. So that's the hazard, right? Who could be harmed? No, sorry, my mistake. If I say slips and trips here, what I have to say that there are cords lying about the work floor then. There are cords left lying around the work floor at the end of the day. That's the hazard. Who could be harmed? Workers, technicians, HSE supervisors. How they could be harmed? I'll have to say they could be harmed if their feet gets entangled in the cord and they were not looking where they were going, then they could fall and they could suffer injury. But when I come to this column here, what are you doing already? I could say like the workers were given an induction, but you have to say this induction may not be effective as housekeeping is poor. You kind of have to hint then, like what you write there is not good enough. Watch it here. Dust masks available, but it's not mandatory that they are worn. You have to write this one with a sense of weakness in it, then to move on to your further controls. In other words, let me use another one again. If I had noise here, and by the time I reach this column, if I put something like workers were given an earmuff, right? You have to say, but they are not wearing it. Even though the earmuffs are issued, no one is insisting that they are worn. So when you do that, you're kind of setting yourself up for the fourth column, which is the further control. Oh, by the way, I refer to these as the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth column. It has 6, but you know, we can't get across there as yet until I clear all of this, right? See if you understand this. I'll repeat this one again. When you're writing the thing in the third column here, you have to write it in a way, in past tense, dust masks are available, past or present tense. But when you write it, you have to set it up in a way like it's not good enough, right? That the workers have had a basic orientation, or they have had a risk assessment, but that was 2 years ago. So it's not effective anymore. So you have to kind of say those things. You can say the word not effective. You can say the word inadequate. If you go back to the guidance, that's what it says to do. I'm telling you, you can write it down now instead of going back. You could use the word inadequate. You kind of have to hint to that, right? This is supposed to be a inadequate, right? You could hint to that the controls, they are not adequate or they are not effective, but you have to write it like that. You see the person is trying to do it here. Dust masks available, but it is not mandatory that these are worn. You kind of have to set it up then, like you need to go to the fourth column to put further controls in place. Let me check out your chats and see. Can you say, no, you can't? Okay, so for Joshua, no, you can't say nothing is being done. You have to put something there. You cannot leave it blank. right? So for Shaka, you could say for Shaka, if so you could say a toolbox meeting is done, but it's not effective because we still have DOS, or well, I mean, that's not ready for DOS, right? It would probably be more for housekeeping, like the one I use with the code. We can say that toolbox meeting being done every Monday, but it may not be addressing the housekeeping issues, and then you can go to further controls. You're kind of setting yourself up for the further controls, right? If it's perfect here, then there's no need to go to further controls. All right, okay, folks, we're on the fourth column. It's about 7:15. So on the fourth, did I miss anybody? I think, let me see if there's another comment. So for Joshua, you have to put something for Shaka worker had toolbox talks. Yes, but you need to say worker had toolbox talks, but the focus of the toolbox talks may not have been housekeeping or whatever is your hazard. If it was fire you was talking about, right? Or even hazardous substance, you can say toolbox talks are done every Monday, but they are more focused on management and not dust. So therefore, you're kind of setting yourself up where if it's not good enough, then you go on to the further controls, right? Could I take this off here? Because I have some stuff to write in this column now. So I'm gonna have to take off this one, right? What I advise, right, folks, what I advise before I write anything else again, what I advise, right? This week into next week, write out part 1, which is up here. It's not moving now, right? But you know what part 1 is, right? Right, only part 1 is not moving now. Right, all part 1, right? On the sample, on the, sorry, not on the sample, on the template is about 3, right? Let's do about, no, and if you know 7 or 8, if you're going up to 11 or something, or 12, right? So when you're doing this, you don't need to do the whole table, do about 3, right? So let's get to the 4th, and let me give you some hints. The things in the 4th column is that this one now must be written in future tense. You must say should be done. A lot of people fail because it's not future tense, right? Further control must be future tense, right? In other words, it would have things to be done, right? To be done, right? If you watch here, enclosed area to be set up. Purchase of an untooled dust extraction system. They could have put, they could have said, but they put 1 Monday anyway. Use of face mask in conjunction with the extraction system. But they should have said when. Like I said, this sample is not perfect anyway. As you go down, you'll see more and more examples and more that kind of look the way it's supposed to look, right? So the future controls should be or to be is how you're supposed to say it. Now, these actually should be numbered, right? These should be numbered. Please take a note. Again, should be numbered. And one of the biggest hints here, sorry, I write it like this. I could put it like a number and I could put A here. This is A. The main thing for column 4 is that it must be, in future tense, it must be numbered. And one of the things with it is that if you cannot come up with the controls for yourself, you can use the second textbook. Yes, the second textbook was meant to do the project. So if you find it difficult to get further controls, all you have to do, open your second textbook and look for the hazardous substances and see what they're saying, right? So you could just take some from the book, but please change it up. I mean, when I say take some, I'm like, honestly, change it up there, like if you see it was dust and they say purchase a LEV system, you can say purchase an LEV system. Don't say it back like how they have it here, then purchase an untooled dust extraction system. That's actually plagiarism, right? When you're taking stuff from your book, I mean, things you mightn't be able to change, like LEV, you can't really find another way to say LEV, local exhaust ventilation, right? But don't take any words from here then, right? To say, because they look at this sample very close for plagiarism against your project, right? So the second textbook is a wonderful hint for you to get controls. Now, a question is how many further controls you should get? Safety data sheets. Yeah, you can say that, but from what I gather here, Shaka, you can say that you could use operators should use the material safety data sheet going forward then, right? You can say that definitely, right? But I think you'll find that in your book too, under hazardous substances, they would say that you could use safety data sheets anyway as a control there, right? Folks, there are about 2 more I want to tell you there for column 4. I'm just trying to see where to put it because our faces are right here. We put our face on that side, right? Right, I was telling you, so how much further controls do you put? The thing is, you must put more than 3, right? So there are people that put about 5 further controls, right? There are people that put like 10 further controls. That's really a lot, but you need to put more than 3 further controls, right? There's no rule for this, but you cannot put 1 further control. You would fail if you do that. If I take all of these off here, you will see, I think they have about 10 further controls for hazardous substance. Now, not all of them is like that, right? But about 5 further controls is minimum. You can put 6, put 7. And one of the main things here, again, I'm using letters here because I didn't want to confuse this with the numbers here, right? So I use A, B, C, D here, is that this here, the further control must reflect something called the hierarchy of controls, right? We would actually be teaching this next week, but if you don't know what the hierarchy is where you say like eliminate the hazard, substitute. You want to see some of these words then. In the further controls, like when they say enclose, you could have said this would eliminate the sand or the dust or whatever. They want to see some of the words from the hierarchy of control. Folks, I'm underlining this one because it's probably one of the most important ones. I know you probably think because I put it E, it's less important, but it's only because of my memory. I remembered it last, right? But in the guidance, you must put in, you must say the word then, like engineering controls, like this here. Purchase of an untooled dust extraction system, that should have fallen as engineering control. If you put in, like you said, this is an engineering control, they like to see that. In the guidance, which is the map or the blue or the purple document we're looking at, this is actually mentioned in it. You must use the hierarchy of control, right? Folks, in the last 8 minutes I have, we almost finished. The next thing you have to do from here is very easy, right? But you have to listen because, you know, everything is tricky with NEBOSH. Feel. And for every action, you must put a responsible person, right? I had one of my Trinidad students, a good student of mine, failed the project, right? What she did, she just put 6 months up here alone about it, but she said they should have said number 1. Remember, tell you 1, 6 months, you know, that all of that is number 1, so she will pass. And they fail her because it's own time scale. And every action, tell you here, we finished. The one thing I want to tell you here is that they are not accepting time scales like ongoing and continuous. I don't know if this will have an as immediate. Okay, like this well-controlled risk. Okay, so I guess they didn't say immediate, they put daily, they're not given that correct. They want it in figures then. They want anything like this, everything hits. It didn't came out like this one. So do that in the real world. Anyway, don't do it, right? And that's it, do that now. A couple of minutes I have, I'm 3 minutes, I stopped the share by mistake. Let me, I guess we could wrap up though. So if you have any questions, I'll wrap up. I just wanted to show you another one, right? So for this week, what you will do, your assignment will be to type, what am I doing? I'm doing something wrong. Whenever I'm sharing it, but something I'm doing wrong on my side, right? As they have for the funny one here, sporadic maintenance of those are here. Yeah, see, well controlled here, we're kind of fed up, right? Safe movement of people already need more than this already do go, right? Right, one here, carry out I'm going to write it one last time. Remember, what am I going to write? Remember your second textbook. That's why I write it the second time, because I know you all forget, right? The second textbook. When you run out of ideas for further control, open your second textbook because it was meant for that. Look for noise and see what controls they have for noise, and then use the book and write in some here in the further control section. The biggest hint to the 4th column is your second textbook. If you wonder where am I going to get 5 further controls from, well, some of you who working could do it, but if you're not working and you wonder where could I get 5 controls from, the answer is there. The name of the second book was actually Risk Assessment. It was meant to do the project anyway, right? folks, I'm going to stop. It's 7:30 on the dot. Let me just stop the recording. I guess if anyone is hearing this on YouTube, right? Feel free to follow along and probably give us any questions. We'll try to respond to you as well on the wider forum anyway, right? But for us, this is the end of